Hello everyone, I'm McKenzie Mitchell and welcome to Threads. Today we're in Tampa, Florida, and we're diving into the closet of a third-generational superstar. As a member of the Hart family with nearly 2 decades of experience, her legacy in WWE is cemented. As an entrepreneur, history maker, and a holder of 6 Guinness Book of World Records, she is no doubt the GOAT, Natalya Neidhart. Hi. I am so excited to be here in your beautiful home.
Thank you.
Stunning, by the way.
Much.
Yes. When I started this show, the amount of people that said to me, you have to get Natalya on Threads because she is the ultimate and perfect guest, and you are. Like, the depths of your closet is enormous and so incredible. I'm so excited to dive in and talk about all the things.
Yeah, when you asked me to do the show, I was like, oh my gosh, like I have so many great pieces. And like my gear for me, that's why people probably suggested me for your show, because my gear for me is so special. Every single piece of my gear tells a story. Yeah. And I have a really hard time parting with my gear. A lot of people ask me if they could buy it or if they could have it or if I could sign it for them. And, you know, if I can donate gear to charity. And it's not that I don't want to, it's just that every piece is like a part of my career. There's so many great stories to be told.
And it holds so much sentimental value. Like it's deeply rooted. I mean, you've been in the business for 17 years?
Yes, in WWE for 17 years.
Just WWE alone?
Yeah, I've been wrestling for over 2 decades.
Girl.
So,
wow.
Started when I was a teenager, so I don't want to date myself too much.
No.
I remember like when I first started in WWE, you know, I was like gluing my own rhinestones onto outfits and things that I bought at Target because I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any money. So I was still trying to make stuff authentic to me.
Yep. And I was trying to find that too in the beginning. I'm sure you had no idea what you even were doing when you were creating your gear. You're like, how do I even put a set together? Like, what's my look? How do I create this for myself as Natalya, right?
It takes a minute to figure out what it is that is your style. You know what I mean? Like, it took me years to figure out what looks good, but not just what looks good in front of a mirror. It's going to be what is movable, functioning, like what is going to look good in a match.
Yeah.
What am I going to be comfortable in? And I kind of realized, like, early on in my career, people would say, like, oh, you should wear, you know, a 2-piece. And I was like trying to fit into what everybody was doing. And Kelly would wear a 2-piece. And I was like, she looks so good in a 2-piece. I want to wear a 2-piece. And I realized, like, for me, it looked cute on in person, but then when I would get in a ring and have a really physical, crazy, serious match, for Natty, a 2-piece just wasn't I wasn't comfortable.
It didn't function.
So it took me many years to figure out what I liked and what worked for me and what I wanted to become like my signature style, and then how to evolve that signature style to make it really my own.
It's funny because I feel like among a lot of others, consider you a legend in the business and everything that you've done and your skill, and it takes some time to really create that and evolve into that of what you've created. Take me through that beginning creative process when you're starting out, just OG gear.
My very, very first piece of ring gear was actually designed by my uncle Ross Hart. He was the first person that he actually paid for it and helped me get like my first costume. And it was a pink singlet, and it had like a little heart on the back, and then it had my initials.
Oh,
it was very unflattering. It was very tight. It was like the epitome of what spandex is, like, as far as just, it wasn't flattering, but it was like we didn't know better.
Yeah.
And so it was a little singlet, like a little, you know, for a girl trying to be sexy,
right.
You don't want to wear the same type of singlet that like an amateur wrestler is going to wear.
Wearing. Exactly.
But my uncle paid for it, and it was made by a lady in Calgary. Her name was Crazy Colleen.
Oh.
And she just made it for me, and it was like so special because it was my very, very first thing that I had ever worn in a match. Then as I started to, you know, I came to WWE, the Bella twins and I, we would kind of figure out what, like, they helped me with my gear, and they were like, you should do this, or you should wear that, or and they have actually like kind of always encouraged me to like stick with what was authentic to me. So when I really think about those early years, especially in WWE, I was always like, and I still am to this day, very proud of my family. And I was like, I always kind of want to have a little pink and black in my gear. Even if we use other colors, I always want to have a pop of pink and black. And so that was something, even from my very early days in WWE, I always kind of wanted to have a little bit of pink and black.
Sure, which we'll get into all of your family and the pink and black and everything. I want to get your perspective on something. What are your thoughts on the fact that your gear really tells a story without talking at all? I feel like you talked about how there's so much sentimental value, and for all of these events, these premium live events, these pay-per-views throughout the years, you're telling a story at the end of the day. What is your thoughts on that perspective?
Your gear does tell a story.
Yeah.
And every single piece of gear that I have, and I've been in, close to 2,000 matches, if not more, in WWE.
Wow.
I haven't counted all of them, but we're getting close to the 2,000 mark if we're not past that. And every piece of gear tells a story. I can literally look at a certain outfit and go, oh, that was the time when I wrestled Charlotte Flair at NXT TakeOver.
Yeah.
Or I'll look at a jacket and go, oh, that was the jacket that I was #1 in the Women's Royal Rumble. Or, oh, that was the jacket that I wore when I walked down the ramp at WrestleMania 35 with Beth Phoenix. Those were the boots that Rey Mysterio gave me. There's those things, I can pinpoint those moments, those conversations, the matches, the planning and the preparation of the matches, the hugs and the tears after, the outfit that I wore to have the very first ever women's match in Saudi Arabia. It was a one-piece black vinyl full bodysuit with a Natalya shirt over it. That was because we were the very first women's match in Saudi Arabia. They made us make the shirt even bigger. We had to sew on a piece of fabric to the bottom of the shirt because they weren't sure that it was going to cover enough.
I wondered about that, of how that creative process was for the Saudi Arabia show as compared to a just television or another premium live event in the United States.
Well, because we were the very first ever women's match in Saudi Arabia, they wanted to make sure that the gear was, nothing was form-fitting, that it was very loose, that we really respected their culture, which I 100% understood. And I wanted to be as respectful of that culture as possible because I knew that myself and Lacey Evans, we were opening up a door for women that had never been opened before. So I knew that we just had to be really careful about everything. And because of the good impression that we made, starting with our gear, we had to make a good impression, and we did. But it was just about opening that door slowly for women that had never been opened before. And like I said, it started with our look. Ponytail, the gear couldn't be, we had to wear the loose shirt over it and just keep it really simple, not a lot of crystals and stones and stuff like that. But thankfully, they have been continuing to make so many wonderful changes, and very cool that we've been able to, like I said, open up a door that had never been opened before and continue to open that for women.
And that's what I love about you, Natty, is you speak for women so eloquently, and you fight for women, and you pave the way. And it just, to me, is so inspiring to watch. And it's been inspiring, I feel like, for several females that are in the locker room, of just what you've done and how you present yourself and what you really stand for. So I just appreciate that so much.
I never take my position as a WWE superstar or a female wrestler. I never take it for granted, and I never take it lightly. Because there's so many women, especially with social media, us having these massive platforms like, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I have over 11 million people that, between those 3 different platforms, that's huge. 11 million plus people that follow me. A lot of them are little girls.
Yeah.
And, people that, really look up to me. So I always try to put stuff on there that I would want the younger Natty to appreciate and grow from.
And be a role model.
Yeah.
For sure. Was there a female that you were looking up to whenever you were coming up the ranks in WWE?
Beth Phoenix. And I had never met her prior to working in WWE. And I remember, she debuted and I was just getting hired. And I was like, I like that she's different. I like that she's not your typical Barbie doll. She's beautiful and she's strong and she loves wrestling. And it's funny because she messaged me when I got hired by WWE on MySpace. Beth Phoenix messaged me on MySpace, and she's like, hey, I'm Beth, and, my whole childhood, I grew up idolizing your family. And I just had heard that there was a female Hart getting into the business, and I wanted to reach out and, just introduce myself. And long story short, we've been best friends ever since. She was somebody that, like, when I was first getting started in my WWE career, I really looked up to her a lot.
And obviously you guys were Divas of Doom later on in your career. How was that creating gear and a look and a feeling essentially with a friend, such a deep and close friend as Beth?
We actually had a lot of fun collaborating on pieces together because Beth and I both like being strong and making bold statements with our gear, but we also love being feminine. And we loved being girly and strong at the same time. And I think that there's a nice blend to that. You don't always have to walk out like you're in the Legion of Doom.
Sure.
You know, we were calling ourselves the Divas of Doom. We like the sparkles and the spikes combined. We both, you know, Beth always wanted to pay homage to my family with the pink and black. You know, we got these little sparkly spikes made for one of our costumes, and we always wanted to match each other. And I remember Beth coming up to me and going, would you mind if I got pink and black in my gear? And I was like, oh my gosh, Beth, like I would be honored. And also I don't own pink and black.
Right.
Like, there's only so many colors in the rainbow for us to use. She was so much fun to collaborate with as far as gear. And she's also so creative. I know that, like, she has helped Adam, her husband, with a lot of his, you know, gear since they've been together, since they've been married. She's been very much a part of a lot of his creativity, and he's super creative too. But sometimes all of us, sometimes
you need a second opinion.
Sometimes guys need a girl's touch.
100%. I can agree with that. 1,000%. You know, I mean, obviously with TJ.
I actually helped TJ with a lot of his gear too. I was like, we should put cats on that, and we should do this and that. Yeah.
Yeah. How much of an input did you have in TJ's gear when he was wrestling in WWE?
I had a lot of input in his gear because TJ wanted to worry about the wrestling, and he didn't really want to worry about, like, the costumes. And I was like, no, the costumes are a really big, important part of this. You have to really, how you show up is going to be super important to, you know, it's your presentation. It's like, we think of some of our most famous people, you know, some of our most favorite people that have done this, like Randy Savage, for example, the way that he would walk down to the ring, he had the most beautiful gear. The most beautiful jackets, you know, boots that matched his gear, and it was shiny and sparkly, and it stood out. And we think about, you know, people think about iconic superstars in their gear, and I think about Ed. I think about Rey Mysterio. I think about, I mean, even just the simplicity of Steve Austin's gear made a statement.
Sure.
You know, and so I told TJ, I was like, you need to, you need to do something that's going to stand out, bright colors, and I remember suggesting that he get this bright yellow gear and get the cats all over the gear.
And did he do it?
He did it. And then Mattel ended up making an action figure for him.
Isn't that so crazy how that works?
Yes.
I think people don't realize there's like a monetary value in it as well, and a collaboration with Mattel and the action figures. And it's crazy how extensive it is, truly.
Yes.
Can you answer the question, why did TJ wear headphones out to the ring?
I actually don't know.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me see if I can call him. Hey, I was just calling because I wanted to ask you a question. McKenzie wants to know, what was the reason why you wore the headphones to the ring? TJ said that he didn't want to hear his theme music. He said he was sick of hearing his own entrance music.
What?
Yeah.
You didn't like your own theme music, so you just covered it up with headphones. Kind of like wearing earplugs.
We did a taping at Full Sail, and my music played 7 times in under 4 hours, and that was too much for me. So I decided that was the last time I'd be listening to that music on the way out, and it was.
And so, TJ, what music would you listen to on the headphones?
There's all types of. There was some 50 Cent, there's some Tupac in there, Jeezy. There's a lot of good shit happening on those headphones.
You didn't ever know this, Nattie?
No, I did not know the story at all. TJ probably told me the story, and I probably wasn't paying attention.
Here's a funny story. One time, Cesaro managing me in a singles match, and so I take my stuff off and I put the headphones down on the apron, and he grabbed them and put the headphones on. And then when we got to the back, he said, wow, he's like, this is a PG world, but the music that's happening in those headphones is not PG. Then he started coming with the headphones the next week. And he asked me if he could.
That's so funny.
Well, thanks, TJ.
Well, we love you. And
No problem.
Thanks for the clarification.
thank you for the clarification. Thank you for answering your phone.
Do you have a favorite set of gear whenever you guys were in the Hart Dynasty?
Yes.
You, Harry, TJ.
This is actually one of the jackets that when we were part of the Hart Dynasty, this is like one of my little ring jackets. And I remember when I first got this made and we all kind of had matching gear that matched this jacket, I remember being so excited because I was actually the one that coordinated and designed all of our gear for the Hart Dynasty.
Okay.
So it was
No
me.
surprise, though, right?
Yes. I was like, listen, you guys do the wrestling. I'm going to make sure that we look like $1 million. And I always enjoyed putting those pieces together. But again, back then I didn't have that much money. So, when it came to like costumes and crystals and, really expensive stuff, we didn't have a lot, but we all looked like we were a team.
Of course.
And I loved that. That was actually one of my favorite times in my career, was teaming up with TJ and Harry and just us being a family together and traveling and the mayhem and the gear.
So we're talking about the Divas of Doom. Do you have a favorite gear or a favorite look of you guys tagging together?
Yes. So my very favorite costume that we had together was this piece from Wrestlemania 35. Beth and I wanted to be matching, and we were adamant that we looked like identical Bobbsey twins.
Okay.
So this is the gear. It was made by Terry.
With WWE.
Terry and her sister Julie actually designed the very first ever Hart Foundation gear.
Wow.
For my
that's
dad and
really
Brett.
Neat.
And Terry and Julie were actually the women that came up with my dad and Brett wearing pink and black.
No way.
They said they were the ones that, when my dad and Brett were wearing blue, they were the ones that were like, you guys should wear pink and black and it'll just stand out. They showed that gear to the powers that be in WWE, and all of a sudden Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart were wearing pink and black.
Stuck.
So Beth and I wanted to honor Julie and Terry, and we wanted to pay homage to Bret and my dad. So we did pink and black, and then with a little bit of blue.
I was going to say, there's a tinge of blue
A
on
little
the rhinestones
pop
a little
of blue.
bit.
And this was there's over 10,000 crystals on this.
Oh my goodness.
Hand placed on there. And then we also wanted a phoenix.
I was going to say, it has her logo a little bit on it as well.
It's Beth's logo, and it's so special. I wanted to have the legs open on the side, and then there's the phoenix on the back. But there's over 10,000 crystals on this, and then a matching jacket.
Phenomenal.
And it's like a little bit of Road Warriors and a little bit of Hart Foundation, but with like all of me and Beth.
Natty, this is on another level.
Yes, this jacket was, oh my gosh, I love this jacket.
Wow.
Let me see if I can even put it on right now.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Can I ask you how much you spend on your gear?
So this jacket was probably $6,000.
Okay.
This was probably $3,500.
And then you wear it once and that's...
Well, I tried to wear this a few times, but because it was so special, I didn't want to wear it much. I probably wore this 3 or 4 times. Most of my jackets, especially as I got older and started making more money, I would start to invest more money in my gear. And so my typical ring jackets can be anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 for a jacket.
And you have kept all of your jackets throughout the years.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite jacket?
The only jacket that I didn't keep was a jacket that I gave to Ultimate Warrior's daughter.
Okay.
After Warrior had passed away, Nattie had come to one of our shows, and I wanted her to have a jacket of mine. Wow. Because I felt, that she was so, just her energy was so special and so sweet. And I was like, I'm going to give you a jacket that I wore at a very special show. So she was somebody that I gave a jacket to, but I don't do that very often for anyone.
But that's such a moment that she will remember for the rest of her life. And it's a heirloom. It's a piece that she can now take, and it's so special to her as well.
And especially as a little girl with big dreams, I could totally relate to that. And I was like, you know what? One day she might grow up and be a WWE superstar. One day she might grow up to be a teacher. One day she might grow up to be a journalist. Who knows what she wants to do, but she's a little girl with big dreams, and she's going through something hard in her life, and it might just take her mind off of it and make her feel good for a few hours. And anyway, but it meant a lot to me to give that to her. And my jackets, my gear, like this is actually one of my favorite pieces of gear that I have.
Do you have a favorite jacket that's outside of this jacket?
Yes. I do.
I should say, do you have a few favorites? Because you have many jackets, right? Let's grab some of your favorite jackets. Okay. All of these jackets, I'm obsessed. I love them. I love the bling and the intricacy, the details. Natty, these are amazing. Take me through some of the stories of these jackets.
So this jacket was made by a really iconic gear maker. Her name is Sandra Gray. She actually makes all of Cody Rhodes' jackets.
Okay.
And when she first came to WWE, she was somebody that I used all the time to make my gear, and I loved her work. And she's just so talented, and she's a really wonderful woman. And she made this jacket for me for my match at NXT Takeover in 2014 with Charlotte Flair.
Okay.
So I wore this that night. You could even see like the tanners still on it.
I love that.
It
shows character,
and
right?
that's her name right there, Sandra
cute.
Gray, and like it's Sandra.
And then let's flip it around on the back. And
Yes, and she had the Queen of Hearts, and then that was my logo. And she was so talented. I loved working with her and collaborating with her, but she was like, you should do a long coat. And so I thought that would be like really cool for a very dramatic entrance. So this was from 2014 Takeover. This jacket I wore when I faced off against Becky Lynch at SummerSlam. We had a big SummerSlam match. Gosh, I'm just trying to think. I think it was 2019 that we wrestled at SummerSlam. And this jacket was made by a designer from overseas. Anna is her name, and she is an artist that's so incredible. And I hired her very early on in her career. Well, I saw some of her work online, and I was like, wow, would you ever be interested in making me a ring jacket? She is magical. She does stuff for the Viking Warriors. She did stuff for me. She's done quite a few pieces for quite a few WWE superstars. She took glass and cut glass herself and glued all of the pieces of glass onto this jacket.
And it's crazy because you can see there's missing pieces
that have fallen
off. You know what, Natty? I think I remember. Did you ever keep this in one of the cases that went along?
Yes.
I remember being at a Raw and Smackdown and going, whose gear, whose jacket is this? And of course it's yours.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
It's heavy.
Beautiful. It's very
heavy. It's all
heavy.
handmade and made with her imagination. She drew out the design. She sent me over the sketches, and then she, was like, this is what I'm thinking. And I'll make the template with the jacket, and then I want to put on all these little mirrors, and I want to put the spikes on. And when I think back to that match in 2019 against Becky Lynch, I think about this jacket and how much I loved wearing this jacket. So yes.
It is so wild how gear really creates its own memories for itself, and it helps mold what that memory of that match was truly.
Yes. I remember walking out in Toronto, Canada, and I remember Brett was backstage, and I had this jacket on, and I remember he gave me a hug before the match, and I was so afraid of poking him with these little spikes. And I was so nervous, and I was like, you know what? I don't know when I'm going to wrestle in Canada again. I want to walk out with the Canadian flag. And I was like wearing this jacket, holding up the Canadian flag. And I just felt like it was such an aha moment. And then to go out there and have that match with Becky, it was just so special. TJ was there, Fit Finley was there, Brett was there. Becky was such a magical opponent, and this jacket really helped set the tone to that match.
Can you speak on the fact that some of the things that you're wearing, it really goes into building your confidence as well, which you kind of noted that a little bit, but can you elaborate on that for everybody as well?
When you are wearing something beautiful, something magical, something iconic, something expensive, something that was a lot of work, something that is bold, bright, and beautiful, and that really signifies who you are as a performer, when you feel like a star and you dress like a star, you are a star. And that's the thing, is that when I got deeper into my career and I could actually afford to buy beautiful gear, I never ever took that, I never took it for granted, because I was like, I want to dress the same way that Shawn Michaels dressed in his heyday. I want to dress the way when Brett walked out with those beautiful jackets, and Brett actually designed those Hart Foundation jackets, which, by the way, is right here. Brett came up with the idea.
Oh, gosh.
This is my dad's jacket. Brett and my dad got matching jackets, and you can see the anvil on the shoulder.
How special.
Brett designed this. He saw the little monkey that was with Michael Jackson in a picture from the 80s. And Brett said, Jim, we got to get jackets like that with the epaulets, and he brought it to Julie and Terry,
and then it was formed.
Julie and Terry formed. They took Brett's idea and they made it come to life, and so that's that jacket. But this jacket is from the 80s, and it's so late 80s. It's so special, maybe early 90s, but it's heavy, it's special, and it's something that my dad, up until he passed away, this was one of his most special possessions. you know, Brett, my dad, like they inspired, again, I know I keep going back to my family, but Brett dressed, you know, Brett, when he was starting to really take, when Brett's career was starting to really take shape, he started understanding the importance of, you got to invest in your gear. You got to, you know, you got the glasses, you got the jacket, you got the look. And he really like wanted to stand out and make it matter. And that inspired me for one of my favorite pieces of gear that I have. It's this jacket. This was made by Terry. She's the same lady that made this jacket for my dad. The night that I won the title in 2017 at SummerSlam against Naomi at the Barclays Center, when I became the women's champion, I wore this jacket. And I told Terry, I said, I want it to be Natty version of my dad's jacket. The
Hart Foundation.
And so she put a little Anvil.
Oh, how cool.
On it.
I love that. And it has the homage. It has the feeling
but it
that
has
it's
my
Natalya.
It has my own spin on it.
Right.
Because, you know, some people, when I first started my career, some people were like, you got to do your own thing, you know, you got to just blaze your own trail. And it's like, yes, I completely understand that. But sometimes when something's not broke, you don't need to fix it.
Of course.
Like, I guess when something's not broken, you don't need to fix it. And that was for me a big thing, is like, I'm never going to stop honoring my family. And I remember talking to Charlotte Flair about that early on in her career. She was saying, you know, when she just started in WWE, they were like, you're not going to do the woos, you're not going to do the chops, you're going to just be totally different than Ric Flair. And she was like, but I want to still want to honor my dad. I want to honor my legacy. So she found a way to do it. Like, to me, to completely ignore the fact that you're, you know, like, what I love about The Rock so much is that he pays homage to his family, but he's still this incredible
He's still Dwayne Johnson, exactly.
Yeah, but he loves talking about his grandmother. He loves talking about High Chief Peter Maivia. You know, when I saw The Rock put together that whole family tree and all, you know, is so much of what he does is inspired by his family, and that for me has a lot to do with my gear. You know, when I think about like, how do I make it natty, but how do I still put my heart and soul into, you know, honoring the Hart family.
Sure.
And I will never stop doing that. As long as I'm competing in the ring, I will always think about Owen, my dad, Brett, Davey, Dynamite Kid, and my grandfather Stu Hart. And, you know, think about, you know, even my husband and the trail that he blazed and how he inspires me. So it all goes into this. But, you know, it starts with a vision. And then you've got to find somebody that can help bring it to life. And I've been lucky to find great seamstresses.
And it's amazing that throughout these years, it started with Terry.
Yes.
And then here you are today, still able to work with the same seamstress, the same designers that went back to as far as your dad and Brett.
Yes.
That's such a unique and interesting perspective that I don't think anybody, I wouldn't know that. No one would know that other than you and other than your dad and Brett and your family. And that's really, really unique and special.
It's because, I mean, I'm so lucky that they still make gear, but they are like, you know, Julie and Terry, they had done stuff since the 80s, and they had done iconic pieces for Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Edge, my dad, Brett, and so many others, China, just to name a few. Terry did a lot of Undertaker stuff and, you know, came up with his jackets. And so when you think about those iconic pieces, they tell a story about, oh, remember when, you know, Mankind wore this, or Undertaker wore that, or Kane walked out wearing this. They are the people that help bring that to life, and they're just true artists.
Would you, or have you ever reworn this jacket that was your dad's? Would you ever rewear it for anything?
I actually did. I wore this. My dad passed away in August of 2018, and a few days after his passing, I was called upon to come back to work. And I think it was basically like WWE's way of saying, hey, we just want to like help you take your mind off of things. And I hemmed and hawed about whether I wanted to go back so soon, because I had just like had my dad's funeral, and they wanted me to celebrate with Ronda Rousey when Ronda won her championship at SummerSlam. And I was like, you know what, maybe this will be good for me to just kind of get my mind off of things. And I decided that I would wear this jacket. When I walked out to celebrate with her, I would wear my dad's jacket. And I just remember that being so special that I put that on, and everybody knew.
Of course, the fans correlated.
Everybody understood, everybody got it. It was just like, everybody like really came together for me during that time when my dad passed away. And like, you know, whether you were a fan of Jim Neidhart or not, like when you saw this jacket and you saw me wearing it, you understood like that was a special connection that we had. Mm-hmm. So, you know, to be able to raise Rhonda's hand wearing this jacket, I felt like my dad would have just been so happy.
Of course, 100%. There's legacies that are following, and it was started with your dad. It started with your grandfather,
yes.
with your dad, and
yes.
then now it's to you. Have you ever thought that once you hang up the boots, and obviously Harry is still wrestling as well, is that right? He's
yes.
still wrestling?
Yeah.
When you hang up the boots and when Harry hangs up the boots, does the Hart legacy end?
No, actually, my nephew, Maddox, he wants to be a WWE superstar.
He does.
So he's still little. He's only 12, but he wants to get into it, and he's actually been training with me and TJ at the Dungeon.
Wow.
So he does amateur wrestling in school, and he wants to be a WWE superstar. Wants to get into wrestling. So I always say, you know, gotta dream big. But Maddox's favorite wrestler is Jey Uso.
Okay.
So, and Jey Uso has given Maddox many pieces of. He gave Maddox a shirt that he wore to the ring and a pair of his glasses, and sent Maddox a video, and so Maddox is very inspired. So I think there will be a fourth generation.
That's amazing.
Hart.
Yes, that gives us all hope. I was like, there's no way that the Hart legacy can end.
Yes.
You know, there has to be more. There has to be other generations that provide on. Do you have a favorite set of gear? I know you have hundreds. It's really hard to choose from. They're all beautiful, but is there one that's your favorite?
Okay, this is my favorite set of gear this piece was inspired by Jennifer Lopez and Versace, and it's a long one piece. It was made by Terry, who made my dad and Brett's original gear, but it was so sexy on, and it was very much like 90s supermodel Naomi Campbell walking down the runway, Versace, Gianni Versace.
Yes.
And I love high fashion. And I said to Terry, Terry made this gear for me for Wrestlemania. I said, I want to literally wear something that Gianni Versace would have made. And can you make this for me? And Terry's like, Natty, that's a really tall order, but I'll see what I can do. And it just fit me like a glove. And I loved everything about this piece so much. I wore that at Wrestlemania.
Mission accomplished, because it checks all of those boxes. But you said it's sexy, but it also is classy. And that's another thing that I love about you, is all of your looks have so much elegance in them. You do it in your own perfect, beautiful way that feels so classy and elegant for you and for younger women that are watching around the world on a weekly basis. I love that about your gear.
And I want, with my gear, it needs to be stuff, especially as I've evolved. You know, when I was young and I started out in WWE and I didn't have very much money, I kind of got by with, you know, scraps. And it's not to say that those pieces weren't special to me, because they all have their place, but as time has passed on and I was able to buy nicer things and design better pieces and collaborate with beautiful artists, it can't just be beautiful. The gear cannot just look pretty. It has to be functional. It has to be stuff that I can wear on television. It has to be stuff that I can move in, that I can wrestle in, that I can do a run in, that's going to stand out, that people are going to remember, that's going to make me feel and look like a star and make me feel and look like Natty. But especially if I'm going to put a sharpshooter on someone, I need to make sure that there's not going to be a wardrobe malfunction.
Everything's tucked in and perfect.
Everything's taped up, tied up, tucked in, and locked in, because
I love that.
Crazy
things happen. Yes. When you're creating your looks, what things that you go through in your mind to say, like, okay, I want to check this off the box. I also want it to have this feeling. I want to have this logo in it, or this look, or this feel. Do you have that, or is it everyone is different?
Everyone is different. Sometimes I like to throw in, you know, hearts. Sometimes I like to have, like, let's go crazy with pink, or let's go darker, or let's do all white and then just a pop of pink. Every single piece of gear varies, because I'm a Gemini and my personality changes a lot. I've got two personalities, so as they say with Geminis, but I change my mind often on what I like. And I know it drives my gear makers crazy because as soon as they think they have me figured out, we're doing something different.
We change something different.
Yeah. And I just started recently wearing much shorter gear.
Yes.
And wearing like shorts. And I never did that before because I was always a little heavier. And so I had, in the last 2 years, I've lost some weight. And I was like, I never wanted to show my legs before. And now I'm like, I'll maybe just show my legs a little bit. And I'm liking it.
Well, you look fantastic.
Thank you. And I'm like, I should have done this a lot earlier, but I was always too chicken to show off my legs. And now I'm like, we're getting a little shorter. We're showing a little bit more stomach. I want to show a little bit more cleavage. I like pushing the envelope.
We're cool.
And I think that just comes with I think that comes with confidence. I think that comes with believing in yourself. And when you wear beautiful pieces made by these incredible artists, and you're performing with the best female wrestlers in the world, you feel unstoppable.
I love that you're pushing your limits, but you're also, every time you show up with a new set of gear, it feels consistent, it feels beautiful, it feels elegant. When you're done wrestling, do you feel that your style, your look, your skill in the ring, the consistency that you bring on a weekly basis will be the legacy that you leave behind?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think there's something to be said about persevering and being very, very consistent, because I say this to every new female that I meet that comes to WWE, and, they'll ask me for advice, and I'm like, listen, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. If you're going to have longevity here in WWE, or you're going to have longevity in the industry, you have to really pace yourself, and you have to take every single moment, one moment at a time, every day, one day at a time, and know that everything is situational. Everything is situational based off of the day, the circumstances, your opponent, what type of match it is. There's going to be times when you're not always going to have brand new gear.
Yeah.
There's going to be times when your gear maker was, they couldn't come through because they were making 30 other costumes that week, or that's the thing with finding a really good person that makes gear. Mm-hmm. It is really, really hard. It is one of the hardest things to find a gear maker.
Well, and that was a question I was going to ask you as well. John Morrison said to me a couple weeks ago on Threads that it takes longer to find a good set of gear that fits you than to learn to wrestle. Oh. What do you think about that?
I mean, to really find what works for you, it's hard. And it took me many, many years to find, I would agree with him on that. It took me like 10 years to find the gear that I really liked, that really worked for me, but also finding a good person to make it for you. It's an art. You can't just be a regular costume designer making something for somebody that's working, a regular job.
Right.
People that are working regular jobs aren't getting their hair stepped on, or getting punched in the face, or getting drop kicked in the chest, or it's very intricate, and it takes a really special person to make this, and I feel like, for me, when I finally figured out what worked for me, I just kept evolving and growing with it, and it really has set the tone in a lot of ways for my career.
Do you have anything outside of your family members that someone else in the industry has given to you?
This is something that Shotzi made for me. She made this, and she surprised me at Wrestlemania a couple years ago with this hat. And she would wear a hat like this when she'd come out on the tank.
Yes.
And she's like, I want to do the cat ears, and I want to natty this up.
Uh-huh.
And so when we came out for Wrestlemania, we both wore these hats matching, and then I had my little cat ears, but she made this for me. And it's so special to me because it was from her, and I love it. So this is that was made for me by Shotzi, and it's super special to me.
What's your thoughts when it comes to wrestling boots? Do you have a standard wrestling boot that you have loved, or did you have to try some out throughout the years, or is there one that you've just stuck with throughout the years?
It's funny, Rey Mysterio, he is somebody that inspired me with wrestling boots. I saw a pair of boots that he was wearing, and I said, Rey, I love those boots. And the next week he showed up with a pair of boots for me. He gave me a pair of his own boots.
Oh, really?
And then he had a special pair custom made for me, which are the silver ones that are on the floor over there. That's the kind of guy that Rey Mysterio is. He'll literally take the shoes off of his feet and give them to you.
Wow.
And so
these are the boots.
These were the boots that I wore. I wore these gosh, I wore these for mini matches, but I wore these at WrestleMania when I tag team with Shayna.
When I picked them up, they're lightweight.
Oh, they're so light. I can do anything in these.
I can imagine. I've never been in the ring, but I can imagine you'd want something that feels like you're not really wearing shoes.
Oh yeah, they're so light that you almost don't even feel like they're just like light as a feather.
Absolutely.
They're so beautiful. I love them so much. And Rey Mysterio is the reason why I wear these boots. And the boots that Rey Mysterio gave me are like one of my most special like treasures that I have.
Of course, a possession for
Yes.
sure. Well, Natty, thank you so much for having us here to your house, and just taking the time to go through everything. There's so many stories that I learned today.
And I've never really talked about my gear before. Like I have pieces that are really special, but I've never really deep dived into them, you know, as far as what I love and what means the most to me and what was given to me. And I mean, I have had almost 2,000 matches or over 2,000 matches in WWE, and every single thing that I've worn tells a story. And when I was wrestling for my grandfather's promotion in Calgary, Stampede Wrestling, and working for my uncles, the gear that I wore in that told a story. And when I think of stuff that I have that's being made right now and where I'm going, you know, what I'm doing and how I want to grow and evolve and change and, you know, really kicking it up a notch, I think, oh, this is what I want to do, and I want to do this, and I want to add this, and it all kind of is centered around my gear. All of these important magical moments, and, you know, from my past, present, and then my future, they're all like centered around what's my next costume going to be for my next match. And it makes me excited. I really feel excited and upbeat and just so grateful for everything, but also so excited for everything to come.
And whatever the future holds for you, we will all be watching, and I'll have a front row seat. I'll be so excited for everything that's to come for you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And I'm going to have the cutest gear. I'm already working on something right now with, it's red, white, black, and pink.
Cute.
I'm so excited to mix pink and red.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Natty. It's been so much fun.
Yay. Thank you so much, McKenzie.